Today I was given a tease on my channel. Someone claims the log files from this election were deleted, but there's still log files of past year's elections instead. Now, this person is actually just making an assertion that the election log files were deleted. When you look that up, the first thing you'll find, if you sort by time and date stamp, will be this video now. But anyway, what you normally find are manuals that you can read for the equipment that's used for ballot counting. And you'll also find a U.S. Senate report on Russian efforts against the 2016 election infrastructure, which is highlighted down here, intelligencesenate.gov, sites, default, files, documents, report, volume 1 PDF. Now, the reason those come up is the Russians went out of their way to alter log files or read them because they were trying to find ways to break into the system. Now, we're going to be showing a couple of files from my computer here that may or may not have personally identifiable data. I'm pretty sure it doesn't. One of them is for the Windows System WDI log directories, and the other file is from users, admin, app data, roaming, OBS, Open Broadcast Software logs. That's the one I use for normally making my videos. Now, before I did this, I ran a routine I call Janitor, which is a combination of dozens of routines that seeks and destroys every bit of data on the computer that you can erase without erasing your files or harming the operating system. That means that virtually nothing is left on the computer, and I'm going to demonstrate that. But again, when you look up election log files deleted, besides finding this video, if this becomes a meme, apparently I'm going to be the first video, which was a mistake for you to ask me this question, obviously. But it also brings up manuals you can read about the election software and hardware, and it covers something about the log files. Now, I want to mention something. There's more than one kind of log file. For Open Broadcast Software, which is what I use to make videos showing my face, it has its own log directory under the administrator directory. Yes, I'm in super user mode. Many of us geeks do that. Many systems are set up in super user mode. People are complaining about that, so maybe I'll add that to the title. That's done simply because that's what you set it up with when you're setting up drivers, so it doesn't constantly annoy you about demanding for passwords. So you can load up drivers or unload them. It makes things faster. Then when you run the computer for doing its activity, you run it into a limited account that only runs a program, especially on a voting machine, or maybe two. And it limits the ability or eliminates the ability to reinstall drivers or update anything because you don't want it to kill itself. Anyway, the roaming logs for Open Broadcast Software are in a subdirectory I would rather it didn't keep. And then over here we have the WDI logs, which are 256 kbyte files, half a megabyte files, or quarter megabyte, excuse me, that are on the Windows operating system storage area. Now, if you haven't figured that out, what I just said is this set of files here are system files. They belong to the Windows install or the Windows operating system or the Windows program. The computer program that runs your computer, called Windows, if it's a Windows machine, is literally just like any other program, and it does create log files. In my opinion, way too fucking many, which is the reason I erased it before doing this video. I then ran a couple of dozen programs to see what would be created that you could easily detect using the Windows software and also third-party software. The other kind of log file is created by any computer routine. In this case, Open Broadcast Software, which I use for grabbing video screens like this or for making recordings of myself. These are not the same thing. A OBS log doesn't necessarily have to affect the operating system or even be noticed by it. But then again, it could be. Lawyers talking to you through the news or media of any kind, or especially through the internet, are not legally compelled to tell the truth. There is no consequences for them lying. But when they get into court, they have to at least say things that are not factually untrue, at least on the surface. They will manipulate information to make it look like they're saying something that isn't true because they want you to believe something that is a lie. Lawyers do this all of the time, and I dare you to find a lawyer that tells you that they never do that. That means they're lying. Now, if a lawyer comes into a room and doesn't draw extreme designation or differences between the Windows System 32 WDI files and your user files or the program directory log files, if they just say log files and not really tell you where they located them and show them to you on the screen, that is the definition of someone lying about what the log file is. This is Event Viewer. This is part of the operating system for Windows 7 in this case, but most of the versions of every operating system, including Mac, might have something identical. Here we are seeing information message that tells us something happened. This one here is talking about the event log being cleared, which is what I did, according to this, at 3 p.m. approximately. That's accurate. I erased the log files. I told my computer to erase everything it could remember without it actually failing because I wanted to have a clean slate to work with. This is not difficult, and it's something you're supposed to do before you shut down a machine and mothball it for any more than a couple of months. I do it every few months because the thing just builds up crap. Windows is notorious for this and is also notorious for trying to prevent you from cleaning it. I run routines on my machine to flush it every few weeks so that it doesn't trip over its own bullshit. Now this is an information message. This one here is an error message. That means an error has happened. And if it has a critical message, that means something really went wrong. Critical messages, error messages, and information messages are what are discussed by the lawyers who are telling you this has something to do with voting. The equipment for voting that was run on Windows-based machines most likely ran a scanner which has its own drivers and software, and another piece of software that's supposed to interpret that information to be able to do a count of the votes faster than a human can read it. This is something that if you want to dispute with me, you can in the comment section, but you're required to provide a reason for doing so before you do this. I won't let your comments show up. So take your propaganda elsewhere and let's talk technical. Now, the error messages here can be opened. I'm going to show a demonstration of, there's only 4 of them, so we'll just do 4. Fatal alert. Received. Code 40. Log name. Now that's in the system log over here. And it says task category none. It says event ID code, which you need to have on the screen if you're discussing these. And it says S channel, and it shows the time. Now, unless a lawyer told you about those error messages, or critical messages, or warning messages, and then showed you a screen like this, which has nothing to do with the voting software, it has to do with the operating system, they were lying by omission and they know it. Now we're going to go into details. This ought to be hilarious. So it says alert desk, yada, 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 yada. Provider, S channel. GUID. This one tracks down what particular type of program it might be, or not. Okay? And yes, I have my computer labeled MacBook 4. Now we'll go to this one. About the same thing. Now the ID code here, and system time, excuse me, the GUID here, again, refers to what program did that. Did the lawyers show you that or not? Next. Windows imaging acquisition. You may have noticed I deliberately created an error message. How do you do that on Windows? You start it. This one ran a program, this particular one, event, that said it was a error, not a critical or a warning message, but an error message, and it said this, Windows image acquisition. That's because I ran the software to take a video of myself just long enough to make it do this constant, chronic fucking problem. And it's through Service Control Manager, and there's the GUID for the program. If you were to type that in, you'd probably find out which program it is. It's Open Broadcast Software. And it gives you these bits of data. But it tells you it's the Windows imaging acquisition. The same sort of subroutines that might be involved, in running a scanner scanning votes. Unless they opened up the error message or warning message or critical message and showed you by doing this and showing it was that, or this and opening that, so you could look at the GUID for the program that initiated it or other subroutine, they have not shown you a way to prove it had anything to do with a vote. Now let's go off to another program. This one's called Last Activity View. I'm going to reload it or refresh it. Now it showed a software crash I deliberately created with Cam Studio 2, which I'm using right now. And also, conveniently, it shows us at 3 p.m. I ran Crap Cleaner version 5.38. This is what I used to flush all of the previous records so it doesn't know anything for the last few months, and in some cases for a decade. Because that says the operating system installer on one page here, this is only one page of data, for all the activity on my computer, it shows only maybe 100 events, and one of them was installing the operating system in the first place. It also shows that I made a mistake way back here and installed HDTV pump filter, and it had a virus in it, so I ended up having to do a fairly large amount of reinstalling. You might have noticed all the installs. In fact, virtually everything you see here is a software install. But the one thing it didn't show you is it didn't show you that I ran OBS, Open Broadcast Software. The event viewer showed OBS, but it didn't tell you that. But it's that Windows acquisition routine. And that shows 3:14 p.m. Now we go back to the last viewer. Obviously, it was between here and here, and it isn't able to find it. Not every piece of software can find jack shit. And here's the snapshot page for me running a program. And this one here, excuse me, wrong one. This one shows the Open Broadcast Software, and it shows that I ran it just before the hour as well. Now, that's a log file that's for a particular program, an application routine, in this case, for grabbing imagery and making a file. And this is what the log file looks like. And we're going to do a simple lookup. You know it crashed. I deliberately crashed it. Find ERROR. Bang. No, it doesn't have that word in it. It doesn't record error message. Okay, warning. No. How about critical? It might have it. Let's just type in CRIT. Nope. Now let's go to the other one. This is a snapshot.etl. Okay, this is actually an operating system log file containing stuff, right? Now I'm sure it's going to have in here, warning, WARNING. Yes, I have horrible spelling skills. Okay, error. No. Okay, critical. I'm just going to type in CRIT. Now this has pure text in it. It has stuff that's kind of readable. Last activity view shows an actual freaking software crash. And if I double click it, it shows my files Cam Studio 2 recorder had a crash because I deliberately crashed it. But that doesn't show up in Event Viewer. And yeah, I've refreshed it. It still doesn't do it. The only thing it shows is at 3:14 p.m., when I double click it, it shows the Windows acquisition routine crashed because it's badly configured, but it still works. None of this has anything to do with hundreds of errors caused by that program screwing up. The Event Viewer doesn't show a crash of a piece of software that literally does the same thing as a scanner would if you were scanning a ballot. And this log file doesn't have the word error or critical or warning in it, and that one is for a program, specifically Open Broadcast Software, that I crashed. And this one is part of the operating system, and it doesn't even use the wording. The only place in the operating system you're going to find, and it will be the operating system, that shows the word error, critical, or warning in almost every case, and this is the reason for my assertion, is the Windows Event Viewer looking at the system log file. And the system log file isn't the same thing as a voter log file. And again, lawyers are allowed to infer things or just fucking lie to you in public and get away with it. And in court, they're allowed to infer things and refuse to provide data and refuse to provide evidence, which is what they keep doing consistently, so they can get away with lying in court by not technically lying. Which is the best lying on earth, is to not technically lie in court. And I'm providing you information you can double check by doing your own fucking research. Next. A person popping up in anybody's comment section saying the log files were erased from this election, but they weren't in past years, is not a person who's ever looked up what they just typed. The reason you found this video may be because someone made that assertion. The title of this video will dispel this rumor, or at least tell you that you're being lied to. And yes, the only other thing that comes up besides manuals explaining this subject, just like I did to you, is a Senate report about Russians using those same manuals to fuck with our election in 2016, which Donald Trump will never acknowledge, and most of the people watching this video will try to deny. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.